Welcome to today's episode. I'm Emily, and I have a story that might stay with you for a long time. It's about courage, hope, and the quiet power of a dream that refuses to die. We all have moments when we feel invisible, unheard, or unsure if our voice matters. But sometimes one brave decision can change everything. In this episode, you'll meet Leo, a young man from a small forgotten town. He worked in silence, dreamed in secret, and fought against doubt and fear. His dream wasn't about fame or money. It was about meaning, about being heard. Through his journey, we'll explore how failure can lead to growth and how hope can rise again. This isn't just a story about music. It's a reminder that every dream, big or small, begins with one step. So take a deep breath and listen closely. This might be the story you needed today. Leo lived in a small, quiet town where time seemed to move slower than dreams. Every street looked the same, every face familiar. But few people looked up long enough to wonder. He worked at a grocery store, stacking shelves, sweeping floors, and blending into the background. No one asked about his passions. No one knew that music was breathing quietly inside him. Every night when the world went silent, Leo would sit by the window with an old guitar. The strings were scratched, the sound imperfect, but it was his way of speaking truth. He listened to artists like Ed Sheeran and Adele, not for fame, but to learn how emotion sounds. He studied their pauses, their tones, the way they made ordinary words come alive. Then he would close his eyes and write his own songs. Simple, honest, fragile, but real. He wrote about loneliness, about wanting more, about finding light in dark places. In those moments, Leo wasn't invisible. He was free, alive, connected to something larger than fear. Still, he never told anyone. His father said music was a dream for lucky people, not for workers. His friends laughed, said he should be realistic, that no one makes it out of their small town. So Leo stayed silent, carrying his dream like a secret flame in his chest. But silence can be heavy, and hope needs air to survive. One night, he made a decision that would change everything. He took his phone, recorded one of his songs, and listened to it over and over again. It wasn't perfect. His voice cracked. The sound was messy, but there was something pure in it, a truth that could not be polished away. He stared at the upload button for a long time, heart pounding in his chest. Should he keep it to himself or let the world hear it? He thought of all the times he wished someone would believe in him. Then he whispered softly, "Maybe one person will." And he pressed upload. The room was quiet, almost sacred, as if time held its breath with him. He didn't expect fame or applause. He just wanted to be heard, even by one stranger. Outside, the streets were asleep, the moon hanging low over the rooftops. But inside that small room, something powerful had begun. Leo didn't know it yet, but that small act of courage, that click of a button, was the moment his life shifted from dreaming to doing. That night, he went to bed with a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear that people might laugh. Relief that he had finally shared his truth. He didn't realize it then, but this was how every dream begins. Quietly, in the space between doubt and faith, between hiding and showing up. Leo's first song wasn't a masterpiece. It didn't have studio sound or perfect rhythm, but it was honest. And honesty is what turns sound into music and effort into meaning. As you listen to his story, think about your own version of that upload button. It could be a song, a poem, a message, a small step toward what you care about. The world doesn't need perfect people. It needs real voices, voices that dare to speak even when they shake. Leo's courage didn't start on a stage. It started in silence, with one trembling choice. And maybe that's where yours will begin too. Not when everything feels ready, but when you decide to start anyway. When Leo woke up the next morning, his heart was full of quiet hope. He rushed to his old laptop and opened the page where his song was waiting. The screen flickered, slow to load, but his excitement was faster than fear. He imagined someone listening, smiling, maybe even feeling what he felt. But when the comments appeared, they weren't what he expected. "You can't sing. This is terrible. Like, please stop." Each word felt like a small stone thrown at his chest. He scrolled, hoping to find something kind, something that might balance the pain. But there was nothing. Just more laughter, more judgment, more silence between insults. Leo stared at the screen until the words blurred. His song, something he had created with honesty, was now a reason for ridicule. He closed the laptop and sat in the dark, the glow of the screen fading like his courage. For days, he avoided music. He walked through the motions of life, quiet and gray. At work, he smiled at customers, but inside, his heart felt hollow. The guitar in the corner gathered dust, its strings silent and cold. He told himself maybe they were right. Maybe his dream was foolish. It's easier to stop than to keep trying and face another failure. But sometimes, even in the heaviest silence, life sends a whisper. 2 weeks later, Leo checked his emails, expecting nothing important. Most messages were spam, but one caught his eye. The subject read, "Your song." He almost didn't open it. He thought it might be another cruel comment. But curiosity won, and when he clicked, everything changed. "Hi, Leo," the message began. "I don't know you, but I found your song a few weeks ago. I listen to it every night. It made me feel less alone. Please don't." "Stop!" The words glowed softly on the screen. Leo read them again and again, each time feeling something inside him mend. It wasn't fame. It wasn't approval from a crowd. It was connection. Real, fragile, and beautiful. One person had heard him. One person had understood. And that one person was enough to bring the music back to life. He looked at the guitar, now covered in a thin layer of dust. Slowly, he reached for it, brushed off the silence, and began to play. His fingers trembled, his voice cracked, but this time he didn't care. He sang not for perfection, but for meaning. That night he wrote a new song. It wasn't about pain anymore. It was about recovery, about hope, about being seen. He titled it, "Maybe You Feel This Too." When he uploaded it, he didn't wait for results or numbers. He just breathed and let go. Hours later, small comments began to appear. "This song made me cry. Thank you for writing this. I needed this today." Leo smiled through tears. His heart, once shattered by rejection, now beat in rhythm with kindness from strangers. He replied to every message, not as a performer, but as a friend. The world that once mocked him had made room for a softer voice, his own. And he learned an important truth. Failure doesn't mean the end. Sometimes it's just the pause before a deeper melody. When you put your voice out into the world, not everyone will understand, but somewhere, someone will, someone who needs your words, your song, your story. And for that person, what you create might be the light they've been waiting for. So, if you've ever been told you're not enough, remember Leo's story. The first fall is painful, yes, but it's also proof that you were brave enough to try. And every time you rise again, your voice grows stronger. Because courage isn't built in applause. It's built in silence, in trying again. And that's exactly what Leo did. He turned pain into purpose and fear into song. After that message from Mina, something inside Leo began to stir again. It was small at first, like a spark beneath ashes, but it refused to fade. He picked up his guitar more often, strumming soft melodies late into the night. This time, he didn't play to impress. He played to feel alive again. He began writing songs that spoke about healing, courage, and connection. Each lyric came from a place of truth, not perfection, but honesty. He uploaded another song quietly, without any announcement. He told himself, no expectations, just expression. When he checked back the next day, the comments felt different. They weren't cruel or mocking. They were gentle, real, and grateful. This song made me cry. Your voice feels honest. I needed this today. Leo read every word carefully, smiling between tears. He replied to each listener one by one, feeling a new sense of purpose grow. It wasn't about fame anymore. It was about connection. Soon, people from around the world began to find his music. A student in India said his song helped her study more peacefully. A young man in Brazil wrote that Leo's lyrics helped him understand English better. A girl in Poland shared that the songs made her feel less lonely. None of them knew Leo personally, but they felt his sincerity. That was enough. For the first time, Leo realized that his voice mattered not because it was perfect, but because it was real. He started to build a rhythm, work during the day, music at night. His small community of listeners began to grow slowly, like dawn rising after a long night. He started learning more, watching tutorials, practicing pronunciation, and even improving his English through song lyrics. Music became his teacher, guiding him through not just melody, but meaning. He discovered that art isn't just expression. It's a language that connects souls. As he practiced, he noticed small changes. His voice got stronger, his confidence steadier, his English smoother. He no longer doubted if he was good enough. He focused on being true enough. The more he created, the more others found courage to share their own stories. He started adding small explanations to his songs, describing the meaning of his lyrics. People loved it. Thank you for explaining this line, one wrote. You make learning English feel emotional and fun, said another. Leo realized he wasn't just singing anymore. He was teaching too. He was helping others grow the same way he had once learned to breathe again. Every message, every thank you, became a thread in a web of quiet connection. The internet, once a place of pain for him, had turned into a space of belonging. Mina still sent him short messages now and then. I played your song for my brother. He liked it too. Are you posting again this week? Please don't stop. Each message reminded him that one kind voice can outweigh 100 cruel ones. It was strange, he thought, how the loudest critics had once silenced him. But now, the softest supporters helped him rise. Leo wasn't chasing numbers anymore. He was chasing meaning. His songs were no longer cries for attention, but whispers of connection. Each one a reminder that even from pain, beauty can grow. He learned that growth isn't a sudden leap, but a series of quiet, consistent steps. And he took those steps every day. As he sang late at night, the glow of his screen lit his small room like a stage. There were no spotlights, no audience, no applause. But there was peace, the kind that comes when you know you're finally on the right path. Leo's story was changing, not because the world accepted him, but because he had finally accepted himself. And in that acceptance, his voice found its strength, not loud, but lasting. Sometimes healing doesn't come from applause. It comes from the courage to begin again. And Leo had begun, one song, one word, one heartbeat at a time. When the invitation arrived, Leo almost didn't believe it was real. An online talent show wanted him to perform live, his music, his story, his voice. He stared at the screen for a long time, unsure if he should say yes. A part of him whispered, "You're not ready." But another voice said, "You'll never know unless you try." So he clicked reply and wrote one word, yes. That night, fear became his new companion. He had 5 days to prepare. Every evening after work, Leo stood in front of the mirror, guitar in hand. He practiced the same song over and over, one he wrote just for this moment. It wasn't fancy or loud, just honest, heartfelt, and true. His hands trembled, his throat tightened, and sometimes he couldn't finish a verse. He thought about quitting again, but then he saw Mina's message pop up on his phone. "I heard you're performing live. I'll be watching. I'm proud of you." Those words steadied him more than any rehearsal ever could. On the morning of the show, Leo woke before dawn. He couldn't eat. His stomach was full of nerves and butterflies. He put on his cleanest shirt, tuned his guitar carefully, and took a deep breath. When the live stream began, he saw his reflection on the screen, pale, nervous, but determined. The host introduced him. "This next performer is Leo, a rising voice from a small town." Leo swallowed hard. He strummed the first chord, soft and slow. The sound was shaky, but real. His voice followed, unsure at first, then growing steadier. He sang about fear, rejection, and hope, about how sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths. Every note carried a piece of his journey. Every word a memory of a night spent doubting himself. He remembered the cruel comments, the loneliness, the silence, and yet here he was, still singing. Midway through the song, his voice cracked, but instead of stopping, he smiled and kept going, because he knew that imperfection wasn't failure. It was proof of courage. When the final note faded, there was silence. No sound, no reaction, just a still screen. For a moment, Leo thought it had gone badly. Then one message appeared. "Beautiful." Then another, "I cried." "You're real, thank you." Soon, the chat filled with hearts, comments, and kind words. People wrote that his song touched them, that they saw themselves in his story. Leo sat there, eyes wet, unable to speak. For the first time, he felt truly seen, not as a dreamer or a failure, but as an artist. He realized that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was connection. And in that moment, connection meant everything. When the show ended, he closed his laptop and sat in silence, hands still trembling. No spotlight, no stage lights, just the steady sound of his heartbeat. He looked around his small room, the same one where his journey began. But everything felt different now. He had faced the fear that once ruled him. He had turned trembling into truth and truth into music. That night, Leo slept deeply, peacefully. He had learned something that would stay with him forever. Fear never disappears completely. It's part of the process, but courage means walking forward anyway, even when fear walks beside you. The next morning, his phone buzzed nonstop. People had shared clips of his performance. A small influencer posted one short video, captioned, "This is what real music sounds like." Leo smiled, not out of pride, but out of gratitude. He wasn't famous yet, but he didn't need to be, because now he knew what success truly meant. Not numbers, not fame, but the ability to touch even one heart through honesty. And that's how Leo's voice, once hidden in shadows, began to echo across the world, one honest note at a time. The morning after his live performance, Leo's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, he thought something was wrong. But when he opened his notifications, he saw hundreds of new messages. People had shared clips of his performance. A 1-minute video had gone semi-viral with the caption, "Raw, real, honest." For the first time, his music was reaching beyond his small circle. Comments poured in from around the world. Your song gave me hope. I felt every word. You reminded me to dream again. Leo sat on his bed, phone in hand, trying to take it all in. He remembered the nights he almost gave up, the pain of rejection, the silence after his first upload. Now, those same platforms that once broke him were lifting him higher. But instead of pride, he felt gratitude, quiet, grounded, real. A few days later, he received a message from a podcast host. We'd love to have you on the show to share your story, how music helped you learn English. Leo hesitated. His English was better, but far from perfect. What if he froze mid-sentence? What if people laughed? Then he remembered how far he'd come. He replied, Yes, I'd be honored. For a week, he practiced day and night. He watched past interviews, wrote down ideas, and rehearsed his answers aloud. He even practiced smiling while speaking, not to impress, but to calm his nerves. The day of the interview, Leo sat in his room, headphones on, hands slightly shaking. When the host greeted him warmly and said, Welcome, Leo. Tell us how it all began. He took a breath and started talking. He shared everything: the loneliness, the doubt, the cruel comments, Mina's message, and the music. His voice cracked once, but he didn't stop. When the episode aired, listeners sent messages of their own. You made me believe I can start too. I'm learning English through your songs. Thank you for reminding me that practice leads to progress. Each message was a reminder that vulnerability connects people deeper than perfection ever could. Leo realized that his journey wasn't just about music anymore. It was about growth, language, and courage, all woven into melody. He began creating short videos explaining his song lyrics in simple English. He spoke slowly, clearly, so others could learn and feel at the same time. His comment sections filled with gratitude from learners all over the world. Your videos help me improve my listening. I finally understand the meaning behind your songs. You make English feel emotional. Leo smiled each time he read those words. He was no longer just a musician. He was a teacher of feeling. His small community grew into something global, a mix of music lovers, learners, and dreamers. He didn't chase trends or algorithms. He just stayed honest, consistent, and kind. And that honesty became his brand. His audience didn't come for perfection. They came for truth. He still worked part-time at the grocery store. He still swept floors and counted coins for rent. But now, when he came home, there was a message waiting, a melody to record, a purpose to live for. Then one night, he received another email. Hi, Leo. We're hosting a live music event in the city next month. It's small, intimate, and we'd love for you to perform. Leo read it twice, smiling. This time, there was no fear in his hands, no doubt in his heart. He leaned back in his chair and whispered, This is really happening. Because it was. Every choice, every failure, every word he once thought didn't matter. It all led here. Leo's story wasn't just about becoming known. It was about learning that real success is measured not by numbers, but by the lives you touch through what you love. And for Leo, that was music, raw, honest, and alive. When the day of the live event finally arrived, Leo felt the city before he even saw it. The sound of traffic, the rhythm of footsteps, the hum of life all around him. He stepped off the bus holding his old guitar in one hand and a worn black suit in the other. It wasn't fancy, but it was his best. The venue was small but beautiful, brick walls, warm lights, a stage that seemed to glow. For a moment, Leo just stood there, taking it all in. This was no longer a dream behind a screen. This was real. He walked backstage, surrounded by confident performers tuning instruments and chatting easily. They looked polished, professional, sure of themselves. Leo stayed quiet, trying not to let his nerves show. He heard someone whisper, "He looks like he just walked off the street." Laughter followed. For a moment, the old voice of doubt returned. "You don't belong here." But then he remembered Mina, her words, her belief, her kindness. He straightened his shoulders, took a deep breath, and waited for his turn. When the host called his name, Leo stepped into the light. It's the spotlight hit his face. The room went still. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him, expectant and curious. He sat on a stool, adjusted the microphone, and strummed the first note. The sound filled the room, soft, raw, trembling, but true. He began to sing. The song was called From Shadows to Light. It told his story, the rejection, the pain, the silence, and the moment hope returned. Each verse carried a piece of his heart, every chorus a reminder that healing takes courage. At first, his voice shook. Then, something shifted. He saw Mina in the front row, smiling through tears. And suddenly the fear faded. He sang for her. He sang for the people who once told him to quit. He sang for himself, the version of Leo who used to hide in the dark. The final note hung in the air, long and gentle. Silence followed. For a heartbeat, he thought it was over. Then someone stood up. Then another. And then the whole room. Applause thundered through the hall. Leo's chest tightened as he tried not to cry. For the first time, he felt the weight of every step it took to reach this moment. Backstage, the same performers who had doubted him now nodded with respect. One said softly, "That was real. You made us feel it." Leo smiled, shy but proud. Then a man approached, confident, middle-aged, dressed in black. "Leo," he said, shaking his hand, "you've got something, raw, honest, different." He introduced himself as a music agent. "I'd like to help you record an EP," he said. "You're not polished yet, but you're real. And that matters." Leo stood speechless for a moment. He had dreamed of this for years, but never believed it could happen like this. No flashing lights, no glitter, just truth meeting opportunity. He looked down at his old guitar, the same one that had carried him through countless nights of doubt. Then he looked at the man and smiled. "Let's talk." That night, Leo walked home through the quiet city streets. The lights reflected on wet pavement, and for the first time the city didn't feel so big. He felt calm, grounded, and ready. He realized something powerful. Fame didn't scare him anymore. Because fame wasn't the goal. It was just a side effect of being brave enough to be himself. He had moved from shadows to light, not by chasing approval, but by choosing authenticity. And as he walked, guitar on his back, he whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning. Every dreamer faces a test, a moment when fear demands surrender. But if you choose to stand tall, to sing your truth anyway, that's when transformation begins." Leo did. And in that choice, he turned fear into fuel and a dream into destiny. When the day of the live event finally arrived, Leo felt the city before he even saw it. The sound of traffic, the rhythm of footsteps, the hum of life all around him. He stepped off the bus holding his old guitar in one hand and a worn black suit in the other. It wasn't fancy, but it was his best. The venue was small but beautiful. Brick walls, warm lights, a stage that seemed to glow. For a moment, Leo just stood there taking it all in. This was no longer a dream behind a screen. This was real. He walked backstage, surrounded by confident performers tuning instruments and chatting easily. They looked polished, professional, sure of themselves. Leo stayed quiet, trying not to let his nerves show. He heard someone whisper, "He looks like he just walked off the street." Laughter followed. For a moment, the old voice of doubt returned. "You don't belong here." But then he remembered Mina, her words, her belief, her kindness. He straightened his shoulders, took a deep breath, and waited for his turn. When the host called his name, Leo stepped into the light. The spotlight hit his face. The room went still. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him, expectant and curious. He sat on a stool, adjusted the microphone, and strummed the first note. The sound filled the room, soft, raw, trembling, but true. He began to sing. The song was called From Shadows to Light. It told his story, the rejection, the pain, the silence, and the moment hope returned. Each verse carried a piece of his heart, every chorus a reminder that healing takes courage. At first, his voice shook. Then something shifted. He saw Mina in the front row, smiling through tears, and suddenly the fear faded. He sang for her. He sang for the people who once told him to quit. He sang for himself, the version of Leo who used to hide in the dark. The final note hung in the air, long and gentle. Silence followed. For a heartbeat, he thought it was over. Then someone stood up, then another, and then the whole room. Applause thundered through the hall. Leo's chest tightened as he tried not to cry. For the first time, he felt the weight of every step it took to reach this moment. Backstage, the same performers who had doubted him now nodded with respect. One said softly, "That was real. You made us feel it." Leo smiled, shy but proud. Then a man approached, confident, middle-aged, dressed in black. "Leo," he said, shaking his hand, "you've got something. Raw, honest, different." He introduced himself as a music agent. "I'd like to help you record an EP," he said. "You're not polished yet, but you're real, and that matters." Leo stood speechless for a moment. He had dreamed of this for years, but never believed it could happen like this. No flashing lights, no glitter, just truth meeting opportunity. He looked down at his old guitar, the same one that had carried him through countless nights of doubt. Then he looked at the man and smiled. "Let's talk." That night, Leo walked home through the quiet city streets. The lights reflected on wet pavement, and for the first time the city didn't feel so big. He felt calm, grounded, and ready. He realized something powerful. Fame didn't scare him anymore. Because fame wasn't the goal. It was just a side effect of being brave enough to be himself. He had moved from shadows to light, not by chasing approval, but by choosing authenticity. And as he walked, guitar on his back, he whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." Every dreamer faces a test, a moment when fear demands surrender. But if you choose to stand tall, to sing your truth anyway, that's when transformation begins. Leo did. And in that choice, he turned fear into fuel and a dream into destiny. Leo's story reminds us that every dream begins quietly, with one voice, one choice, one step. He started as a boy hiding in the dark, afraid to be seen, but ended as a light for others. His journey wasn't perfect, but it was real. Through music, he learned that courage grows in silence and blooms in persistence. You don't need applause to matter. You don't need perfection to begin. All you need is honesty, the kind that speaks even when your voice trembles. Like Leo, you have a story, a melody waiting to be heard. So keep going, keep creating, keep believing. Because somewhere someone needs your